My drink is bubbling. Is it gonna show up in the recording? Faith, Chapter 2. Confidence. 1 year later. It was time to go. I left my former life to become an adventurer. I left my job and sold my house to pay the expenses for the journey ahead. Although I've never met her, I also had an aunt who passed away a long time ago. The rich fortune I inherited from her also supplemented me. To be honest, I was homeless, but I didn't like to put it that way. I still had my car, so I slept and stayed in there, although I had enough money to survive off for years, so I could get a hotel if needed. I have never felt more alive. Yet, where my feelings remain scarce. I stood on top of a mountain, past the depths of the woods. I found myself to be alone, in a peaceful place, surrounded by the loudest silence, coupled by the sounds of nature. The rustling of trees in the light breeze, the chirps of the birds that soar in the sky, and the flow of water from a nearby stream. This was the perfect spot to relax. However, I did not come here to relax. I came here to search. Not a pony in sight. If I were a pony, I would relax here, where no human would be. I guess I was wrong. Again. It's times like these that I feel so foolish. I left whatever little I had left of my life to be an adventurer. An adventurer. It reminded me of a video game, but I knew that this was not a video game. I opened my front pocket of my backpack to see the shining gem, still sparkling as bright as ever. "This is why I'm here," I said, holding the gem tightly in my hand. "I can't give up. I know they're out there. I just wish," I started to say, as I sat on a rock with my head in my hands. "I just wish I knew what I was doing. No one even knows I exist anymore. This is my life now. I travel from place to place, and days just fly by. But sometimes I'll find myself stopping. I'm listening for something. Anything. Everything. Maybe someday I'll hear them." The sight on the mountaintop was breathtaking. I can see the treetops along with the bustling brooks. I can see the birds soaring through the air with not a care in the world. There was always something about birds that brought a smile to my face. I thought it would be nice to have wings and soar in the air with them. It would be so easy to let my fate just carry me away, following the same path my whole life through. But I know I can't. What I do with no regrets. Yet I must keep pressing forward and continue my quest. As I started to make my descent from the small mountain, I had a strange feeling. I felt both at peace and I was disappointed. I'm sad I couldn't pick up on the trail to find the ponies, but yet I was at peace. Maybe taking on new adventures was kind of my niche. It is always fun to get out of the world, to see new things that no one has discovered before. I was at the base of the mountain's back. I was considering leaving the area, but I felt like I should check around the mountain to confirm that's all there was. I started to stroll about. Then I saw something interesting. There were some misplaced bushes and ferns at the base. I went closer to the shrubs to investigate. "What's this?" I questioned. I pushed aside the bushes to see that there was a hole in the mountain just large enough for me to crawl through. It was not very inviting, being that it was extremely dark in the tunnel. There were strange markings all around the entrance. They were red and block-like. They had red piercing eyes, along with horns on top of its head. There was white around, I assume, the opening of its mouth, and the white was supposed to be its teeth. The markings seemed somewhat familiar, but I'm sure I just read them out of a magazine or maybe saw them out of a school book. Of course, my curiosity took its lead, and I wanted to see what was inside the cave. Just imagine, I might be the only person who has ever been in there. I didn't see any visible footprints or scuffling or another. I decided it was now or never. So I traversed. I got down on my hands and knees to start bear crawling my way through the tunnel. It was pitch black. Fortunately, I was a diligent packer, and packed myself a flashlight. I pulled it out of my backpack and flicked it on. The tunnel was unfriendly, spiderwebs and dust all over. Yet, I kept going, even though I ran into numerous spiderwebs and kept coughing due to the dust. I crawled for what seemed to be forever, until I eventually started to see a flicker of light that was not produced by my flashlight. I pulled myself closer to it until I saw a set of stairs. At the top of the stairs, the walls were red with more strange marks. Torches on each side. There were 2 platforms that held busts of the head I saw at the entrance of the tunnel. I ventured down the long hallway, trying to avoid the bugs crawling around on the ground. I walked a little further in the hallway, my mouth open in awe. There were scraps of bones strewn across the ground. I couldn't tell exactly what kind of bones they were, more or less the size of a dog. Close by the bones were rusted axes with chips on the blade. It looks like someone threw them at the wall or something. But why would someone do that? Looking up from the axes, I looked down the long hallway and saw some shocking sights. The ground had scuff marks on it, as if fire used to reside there. There were piles of small darts, strange holes on the ground, but the most interesting thing had to be crocodile skulls. This is getting stranger by the minute, I muttered to myself. I walked past the skulls and holes in the ground when the thought occurred to me. Were they traps? But if they were traps, why were they already set off? This seemed like something you would see in the movies. As I was reaching the end of the long hallway, I noticed something that caught my eye. There was a little sparkle on the wall to the left. I started to pace over to it, slightly turning my head to get a better look at it. It seemed to be a gem! This might be the next element! I quickly reached out to pull it out of the wall. Click. What was that? Suddenly, a giant axe flew out of the wall. Seeing it swing towards me out of the corner of my eye, I tried to jump out of the way, but ended up tripping over myself. I fell straight on my shoulder onto the hard, cracked floor. The axe swayed above me, almost touching my other shoulder, and back down to its resting place. I was safe. For now. I pushed myself off of the ground and took a deep breath in and out. I guess not all of the traps here were already activated. I looked back at the shiny object that got my attention in the first place. I didn't want to touch it again, just in case there was another surprise waiting for me. On closer inspection, it appeared to be a gem, but it wasn't an element of harmony. I almost died for nothing. Even though there was peril in here, I just knew there would be something that made exploring in here worth my while. I continued down the hallway, being careful not to do anything else foolish. It looked like there was supposed to be a wall at the end of the long hallway, maybe to keep people inside of the hall. However, the wall was cracked, and I would be able to crawl through it. After passing the wall, I was in a giant room, yet it was desecrated. There were crushed pillars, and the whole room was scorched. The pungent smell dominated. A giant hole in the ceiling provided a clear view of the blue sky. Before me, on the ground, was a grid of little symbols of animals in a square shape. At the end of the grid was an altar. Wait. I have seen this before. I remember this. This is the temple that Daring Do adventured in. This is unbelievable! I shouted. I was literally walking in the same steps that she walked. She's the one who set off the traps. She's the one who took the sapphire stone off of the altar. The reason this room is smoldered is because of the lava trap she set off. Duh! If the element of magic wasn't enough, this proves that ponies are truly real. Years ago, I would have never believed that this could be possible. I am standing in the impossible. Impossible isn't a word in my dictionary any longer. Ha ha! I laughed out loud. It's fun to do the impossible. But how did this temple end up here in this reality? Having my new mindset of nothing being impossible, I knew that some pony had to occupy this temple, even though it was all burnt to pieces. I need some sort of clue. I started to check the walls and pillars, and even started studying the panels in the grid on the ground. Nothing. If there was anything that would lead me into the right direction, it was probably burnt up by the lava. I continued to sit in the sanctuary for about an hour. I was just so in awe of what was in front of me. I mean, if anyone knew what I found, it would make front page news. It would be revolutionary! But I'm not going to tell anyone, since I wouldn't even know who to tell. But I do wish there was something I could tell about this. Someone I could trust, and someone who wouldn't leave me. I have found a location that would change the world, but I have no one to tell. I just get so lonely sometimes. Maybe even always. In the middle of those thoughts, I started to think. If the temple is here, I wonder if Daring Do's nemesis, Awizotl, has his temple nearby. The only problem with that is that it never showed where it was in the show. I remember Daring getting caught by Awizotl and then appearing on some sort of altar with all sorts of dangers in it, but I wouldn't think it would be that far, would it? I took one last look at all the details of the temple and decided to leave in order to find Awizotl's temple. I made my way back through the long hallway, down the stairs, and crawled through the tunnel. Now, from what I remember from the show, Daring Do was in the chamber, while Awizotl was sitting on a throne in the courtyard. There were no evident clues to their whereabouts in the temple, so I guess I'd better start moving. I'm not going to find them thinking about it. I was walking through the forest with only my wits leading me. It had been a nice, warm, sunny day, and I was very thankful for it. There had been some rainy days, and it even snowed once when I was traveling north, but today was not very humid, and not too whoosh. I was in pure shock as my left leg slipped right into the ground. There was no end to the hole. My leg fell completely into it. I smacked my upper thigh while falling, which hurt. I was now laying on the ground with my legs dangling in the hole. I was still in shock, and I had no idea what happened. I started to pull myself up to see what had happened. It literally looked like the ground had swallowed my leg. I started to pull my leg out, and the dirt and grass that covered the hole was getting torn apart. After my leg was out, I got on my hands and knees so I could examine the hole closer. I wasn't able to see what was in it yet, so I decided to dig out the grass and dirt. I used my hands to pull it all out so I could get a good look. After the ground was removed, I stuck my head partially into the hole to look in. It was pitch black inside. I would have to find a light source. Luckily, I still had my flashlight in a convenient spot. I pulled it out, turned it on, and aimed it inside the hole. I found it. This area was the place that Daring Do got captured and thrown into. I could see the altar that Daring Do laid upon. The wrappings that held her to the altar were still there. They were decaying. The spikes were along the sides of the walls just like the show. There was even some left, over sand, on the ground from when the room was filling up with it. Luckily, I didn't see any snakes or spiders, but that doesn't mean they aren't down there. The thought sent shivers down my spine. Now I just had to find a way to lower myself into the hole. I brought along a rope in my backpack, but to be honest, I didn't think I would actually use it. I just brought it to seem cool. The hole wasn't too far from the hole in the top, so it shouldn't take too long to get on the ground. I found a nearby sturdy tree so that I could tie the rope to it. The tree looked strong enough to hold my body weight, so I put on some gloves and started to climb down the small hole, and descended down the rope. I slowly creeped down the rope, being careful not to sway or go too fast. I was reaching the end of the rope, nearing the ground floor, when suddenly my grip was lost and I fell from the rope. I fell about a good 3 feet and landed on my flank. After the rude landing and the pain, I laid down to hopefully recover faster. As I was lying down, I muttered one sentence. That sucked. Then again, I found the altar, so it was totally worth it. Completely forgetting about the pain I once had, and walked up to the altar. I brushed my hand across the surface. It was really dusty, or maybe sandy, but I didn't mind. I was imagining how Daring Do used to be in the spot. I stood there for a moment with a small smirk on my face. I started to look around the room. The spikes were as sharp as ever, so I didn't want to mess with those. There was a golden decoration above the door with some more tribal markings on it. Even the lever that Daring Do flipped to deactivate the spikes and sand was in there. Not really much else to see in there, so I decided to leave to find Awizotl's throne. I left the small room through the front door that was just open enough for me to slide through the bottom. I was back outside on the ledge facing Awizotl's courtyard. His throne was at the end of the yard against a wall. As I looked a little to the left, I saw a flight of stairs that was carved out of the ledge. I was so relieved knowing that I would not have to do any more excavating. I walked down the steps looking downward to the throne, but then I started to hear a high-pitched noise. What in the world? I stated. I started to find the source, only to find it was coming from inside my backpack. The element of magic. I pulled the gem out of my bag. It was making the noise and shining very brightly. I gazed upon it with a nervous energy. Does this mean that they are near? I put my backpack on and finished jogging down the stairs with a gem in my hand. I put on my backpack and finished jogging down the stairs with a gem in my hand. I took towards the throne as the gem started to shine brighter. I've seen enough movies to know what this means. The closer I get to whatever it may be, the brighter it will shine. I jogged all the way to the throne, and it was now before me. So, now what? I said to the gem, not expecting a response. I walked up the steps to get a closer look at the altar, but there was something interesting that I didn't remember from the show. There were words carved into the seat of the throne. I could tell that the words had been there for a while. There was moss and dirt forming in the crevices. The words read, "Your purpose of presence." Why was this question carved here? And who put it here? I looked at the element of magic that was still in my hand. It was almost as if it was speaking to me. I felt like it was telling me to answer the question. I've experienced a lot more crazier stuff than answering a question, so I decided to give it a try. Well, not taking much thought in, I came to find ponies. Nothing happened. Now I felt like a goofball. That is honestly why I came. I came to find them. I gazed back at the gem, but it still spoke the same words. I dug deep in my soul, being completely honest with myself, and answered with, all I had sense of was hopelessness ever since I lost what I never gained to begin with. They loved me very much, but I never had the opportunity to repay such kindness. It's what I loved and still love today. It's what I hoped and still yearn for today. Are there ponies? Do they really exist in the world? As I spoke those words, the question on the throne began to shine. It was shining so bright, I tried to shade my eyes with my arm, but it was too bright. I had to look away. After all the little dots in my eyes, caused by the bright light, went away, I looked back at the altar. There was something on the seat. It was shiny and shaped like an apple. I got closer. It was the element of honesty. I looked at it, not sure what it meant. I now have the element of magic and the element of honesty. The element of magic stopped its humming, and it no longer was shining, so this must have been what I was looking for. I celebrated by doing another dorky twilight dance. I must have gotten it by being honest. But if that is the reason, I can't quit until I find these ponies, because that's what I said. They are real. I was pondering some more, looking at the gems that were in one hand each. Maybe I have to find all of the elements. Then I can find them? That seemed to be correct, because both of the gems winked at me with a flash of light. So I decided, I have to find all of the elements, and to find them, I have to act accordingly to the element. For the first time in my life, I felt like I had meaning. I put the gems away and started walking away from the throne. Smiling, I said, I'll find you.